The night was cold, and the desert sky was full of stars. Mark Rayner walked alone with a flashlight in his hand. He was a scavenger, searching for anything valuable fallen from space. Sometimes he found broken metal, sometimes strange tech, but tonight he found something else. A large metal pod had crashed into the sand, half buried, still smoking. It was not human-made. Mark could tell. The surface was smooth, with glowing lines that pulsed like a heartbeat. Mark stepped closer, careful and quiet. A small screen on the pod blinked in red. Biohazard, do not open. But Mark was never good at following rules. He tapped the screen, and the pod hissed open. Inside, he saw a girl, something like a girl. Her skin was pale blue, her hair silver white. She was unconscious, breathing slowly, with blood on her lips. She looked broken, but she was also beautiful in a strange way. Alien, but not scary. Just weak, cold, and left behind. A robotic voice came from the pod. Subject discarded. Classified, unsavable. Then it added something strange. Memory seal applied. Destruction authorized, if active. Mark frowned. They threw her out like garbage. She was still alive, still breathing. And someone had decided she wasn't worth saving. Mark looked around. No ships, no drones, just quiet wind. He took off his coat and wrapped it around her. He didn't know why, but he couldn't leave her there. He whispered, "You're coming with me." He lifted her gently and carried her to his hoverbike. It was a long ride back to his shelter, but he didn't care. Something inside him told him this was important. When they reached his home, a small metal bunker in the mountains, he placed her on a bed. She was still cold, her skin like ice. Mark lit a small fire and hooked her up to an old medical scanner. The screen blinked with strange data. Her heart rate was slow. Her blood had silver particles. Mark had never seen anything like it. The machine beeped a warning. Unknown biology. Unstable condition. Hours passed. Mark cleaned her wounds and waited. Then, just before sunrise, her eyes opened, bright silver eyes. She looked at him in fear, then confusion. Her lips moved, but no words came out. Mark raised his hand slowly. "It's okay. You're safe here." She blinked and pointed to herself. "Lysa," she whispered, voice dry and weak. Then she grabbed his arm and said, "They left me. They want me gone." Mark asked, "Who left you?" She shook her head slowly. "My people. Afraid of me. I saw something." Before she could finish, her body shook with pain. Mark helped her lie back down. He gave her water and said, "Rest. You're not alone anymore." But outside, something watched. A small alien drone hovered in the distance. Hidden in the trees, its red lens blinked. Then it flew away silently into the night sky. Back inside, Mark checked the pod he had found her in. He searched the memory logs and found one message. It said, "Subject Lysa. Genetic deviation detected. Experimental healer, termination ordered." He stared at the screen, heart pounding. What was she? Why did they fear her so much? And why did she say she saw something? Lysa slept quietly now, but her body twitched like she was dreaming. Mark sat beside her, watching, thinking. Something told him this was just the beginning. He didn't know her past. He didn't know her secrets. But he had made a choice. He saved her. Now he had to protect her, even if it meant fighting whoever or whatever was coming next. Lysa lay still in the bed, wrapped in blankets. The room was quiet, except for the low hum of old machines. Mark sat nearby, watching her breathe. Her chest rose and fell slowly. But each breath sounded stronger than the last. He had slept only for an hour. His mind was full of questions. Who was she really? Why did her own people want her dead? And why did her blood shine like silver in the light? Mark stood and walked to the small table beside her. He checked the scanner again. Her temperature was rising, but not in a bad way. Her body was changing, healing, but in a way no human could. Suddenly, Nyxia opened her eyes, silver eyes glowing in the dim light. She looked at Mark and whispered, "Where am I?" "You're safe," he said gently. "I found you in the desert. They threw you out of a pod." She sat up slowly, her face full of confusion and pain. "My people. They said I was sick," she muttered. "They said I couldn't be fixed. But I wasn't sick. I was different." Mark helped her drink some water. It was clear her strength was returning. She looked around the room and asked, "Is this your home?" Mark nodded. "It's not much, but it's hidden. No one comes out this far." Nyxia smiled weakly. "That's good." "They will come for me." Mark's face tensed. "Who?" She looked at him with serious eyes. "The highborn. They rule my world. They decide who lives and who dies." She paused, touching her chest lightly. "I was a healer, a scientist. I studied life. I found something in human DNA. Something powerful." Her voice shook. "They told me to stop, but I didn't." Mark leaned forward. "What did you find?" She looked down, her hand trembling. "A spark. A code. It could break their control. It made humans free." Before Mark could ask more, an alert sounded. He rushed to the all screen on the wall. A drone had been spotted hovering near the entrance. "They found us," Mark said quickly. Nyxia stood, her legs shaky but firm. "I can hide," she said. "I won't put you in danger." Mark shook his head. "I didn't save you so I could watch you die." He grabbed an old rifle and walked outside. The wind blew cold across the rocky ground. Far above, a small black drone floated in the sky. Its red lens scanned the area, then zipped away into the clouds. Mark returned inside, locking the metal door behind him. "They're watching," he said. Nyxia nodded. "They won't attack yet. They'll wait. They want to know if I'm still alive." That night, Nyxia sat near the fire. Staring into the flames, she spoke slowly, her voice soft and distant. "My people test everything, even love, even birth. If a child is born wrong, they erase it before it grows." She touched her arm, where a scar marked her skin. "I was almost erased too." Mark listened, unsure of what to say. Nyxia looked at him. "But I lived. Because I was useful, they gave me a lab." "Told me to study your kind," Mark asked. "And what did you learn?" She smiled sadly, that humans are dangerous. Not because of weapons, but because you feel too much. Fear, anger, hope, love. You don't shut it off like we do. She leaned closer. "That's what they fear. The chaos of choice." Mark sat down beside her, the fire crackling between them. "You think I should have left you there?" he asked. She looked at him, surprised, then shook her head. "No. You gave me something no one ever did, mercy, suddenly." She groaned in pain and clutched her side. Mark rushed to her. "What's wrong?" Her skin was glowing faintly, a soft light moving under the surface. "I don't know," she whispered. "It's starting again." The change. He helped her lie down as her body trembled. The scanner beeped faster than before. Her blood cells were multiplying, repairing, evolving. Mark saw one word flash on the screen. "Hybridization detected." He stared at it in disbelief. What did that mean? What was happening to her? Nyxia opened her eyes, her voice full of fear. "Something is growing inside me. I don't know how. But it's not just me anymore." Mark stepped back, shaken. His hands trembled as he whispered, "What are you carrying?" She didn't answer. She just closed her eyes and whispered, "They will kill us both if they find out." Mark couldn't sleep. The desert night was cold, but sweat covered his forehead. Inside the bunker, silence filled the air, broken only by the soft hum of machines. Nyxia was resting, but not peacefully. Her body kept glowing in waves of pale light, like something inside her was waking up. Mark sat in front of the scanner again, eyes locked on the screen. The data made no sense. Lysa's DNA was rewriting itself, and parts of it, just a few markers, matched his own. But how was that possible? He hadn't touched her like that. Not in that way. It didn't add up. The word hybridization still blinked on the display. He whispered, "What did they do to you?" Behind him, Lysa stirred. Her voice came out soft, but sharp. "Not what they did. It's what we became." Mark turned, surprised to see her sitting up. Her eyes looked brighter, more focused, more human. But her skin was still a strange shade of pale blue. "Your DNA. It bonded with mine," she said slowly. "It wasn't a choice," Mark asked. "Then how did it happen?" She looked down, holding her stomach. "I was already unstable when they threw me out. The crash, your blood. Contact, maybe. Something in you triggered the process." Mark stood still, trying to understand. "You're saying this child, or whatever's growing inside you, it's mine." Lysa nodded slowly. "Not fully human, not fully me, but something new." Before Mark could reply, an alarm flashed red on the wall. He rushed to the terminal and checked the motion sensors. One of the outer perimeter drones had gone dark. Mark whispered, "They're here." Lysa stood, legs stronger now. "They're watching," she said quietly. "I can feel them. They don't want me back. They want me erased." Mark grabbed his old rifle again and turned off the bunker. Lights, they moved quietly into the shadows. He activated a small screen showing night vision from the camera outside. Through the green glow, they saw it. A tall, thin figure stood near the edge of the rocks. Its body shimmered like glass, bending light around itself. It wasn't human. "And it wasn't from Earth," Mark whispered. "What is that?" Lysa didn't blink. "An enforcer," she said. "One of the Highborn's silent hunters. They send them when someone breaks their law." Mark stared at the screen. The creature didn't move, didn't speak. It just watched, waiting. Lysa whispered, "It knows I'm inside, but it can't enter without permission." "What?" Mark asked. "Why not?" "Our laws," she said. "The old ones, written in our code. No death inside private shelter unless blood is spilled first." Mark understood then. "If I shoot first, it can kill us." She nodded slowly. "Yes." The next morning, the figure was gone. But Mark knew better. That thing wasn't finished. It would wait and report and plan. Lysa returned to her bed, her body still changing. Mark sat nearby again. Watching her with worry in his heart, he said, "This isn't just about you, is it?" She shook her head. "No, it's about what I found." Inside human blood, she leaned forward and placed her hand over his chest. "Your DNA carries a strand we never saw before. It resists control." Mark frowned. "What kind of control?" She looked into his eyes. "The highborn control. Thoughts, emotions, even memories. They shape entire species to follow orders without question." Mark whispered, "But not us." Lysa nodded, "Not completely, and that scares them." Mark asked, "Then why are they trying to kill you?" "You didn't do anything wrong. I proved something true," she said. "That your species is immune to their design. And now I carry a child who could be worse. Or better. Something they can't predict, can't control. Outside." A second drone arrived. This one was smaller, faster, harder to detect. It flew low near the entrance, then vanished. Mark watched it leave and said, "They're not going to stop, are they?" Lysa looked down at her stomach. "No. They're going to try everything. But we can't run forever." Mark stood and picked up a small metal box from the shelf. He opened it and revealed a glowing chip, an old alien device he once found. Years ago, he never knew what it did, but now he had a feeling. He looked at Lysa. "If we want to survive, we need to know what they're planning." Lysa nodded. We need to see what they see. Mark plugged the chip into the terminal. The screen blinked. Then lines of alien text appeared. Lysa moved closer, reading quickly, her voice shaking. This isn't just about me, she said. They've marked this whole region. They're going to wipe it. Cleanse everything. Just in case, Mark stared at the screen. They're going to burn the desert, he whispered. Lysa grabbed his hand. Then we fight, she said. Not just for us, but for what's coming. Mark nodded, because now it wasn't about saving one life. It was about protecting the future. The sun rose quietly over the desert, but the peace was a lie inside the bunker. Mark paced the floor while Lysa sat motionless in the corner. Her eyes were closed, her breathing steady. But something was happening inside her, something neither of them could explain. Her hands rested on her stomach. It was rounder than before, and firm. Mark had noticed the change overnight. The child was growing far too fast for normal biology. He finally asked, Lysa, how far along are you? She opened her eyes slowly. I don't know, she whispered. This should take months, maybe years in our cycle. But it's happening in days. Mark knelt beside her, his voice low. What does that mean? She looked at him. Calm but afraid. It means the child is adapting. Learning your biology. It's not just a mix of our DNA. It's creating something new. Mark stood up and rubbed his face with both hands. This doesn't feel real, he said. How can this be my child? Lysa gave a soft nod. I don't think we shared like humans do. But you touched the implant on my back. You activated something ancient. Something forgotten. Mark remembered it clearly. That night when he cleaned her wounds. He had touched the strange glowing mark near her spine. He never thought it meant anything. Now, everything had changed, she continued. Some highborn tech was banned long ago. It used to bond warriors. Connect them through life and thought. They feared what it could create if used on outsiders. Mark whispered, and I'm the outsider. Lysa nodded slowly. But now, the bond is real. And it's growing. Suddenly, the scanner beeped loud and sharp. Mark ran to it and stared at the data. The energy inside Lysa's body was spiking. Not just life signs, something else. Something like a signal. It's broadcasting, Mark said, but I don't know to who. Lysa stood slowly, holding her stomach. They'll know soon, she said. The child isn't hiding anymore. It's calling out. Mark looked at her with wide eyes. To the highborn. She shook her head. No. To something older. Before Mark could respond, the lights flickered. A wave of static hit the walls. And the outside cameras went dark. He rushed to the terminal and tried to reboot the system. Nothing worked. Lysa stared at the wall, her eyes distant. They're jamming everything. She said, they want us blind. A soft thump echoed above them. Then another. Something had landed. Mark grabbed his rifle and looked at her. We have to move. But Lysa didn't move. I can't leave yet, she said. My body isn't ready. The child is still forming. Mark's heart raced. How much time do we have? She looked into his eyes. Hours, maybe less, outside. Shadows moved across the sand, tall figures with glowing eyes and long weapons. They weren't drones. They were highborn warriors, silent and deadly. Inside, Lysa's body shook again. She fell to her knees, gripping her sides. Mark ran to her, catching her before she hit the floor. What's happening? He cried. She gasped. It's speaking. I can hear it. The child? It has thoughts. Mark helped her onto the bed. She whispered. It knows you. Mark froze. What do you mean? She looked at him through tears. It calls. You, father. It sees your memories. It's not just alive, Mark. It's aware. The scanner beeped again. Screen displayed a new word. Neural imprint detected. Mark stared at it. He didn't know what it meant, but it sounded permanent. Lysa grabbed his hand tightly. "This child is more than DNA," she said. "It's built from your mind, your memories, your soul outside." The enemy closed in. The shadows moved toward the bunker doors. Mark tightened his grip on the rifle, but deep down he knew bullets wouldn't be enough. Lysa whispered, "We must protect the child. If they capture me, they'll destroy it before it takes its first breath." Mark looked at the emergency exit on the far wall. A tunnel led deep into the rocks. He helped Lysa up and wrapped her in his coat. "I'll carry you if I have to," he said, "but we're getting out." Lysa smiled faintly. "You really are different." Mark replied, "So is our child." As they entered the tunnel, the first blast hit the bunker doors. Flames shot through the cracks. Dust filled the air, but Mark didn't look back. He held Lysa close and ran deeper into the earth, because now he wasn't just saving her. He was saving something new, something the Highborn feared. A future they couldn't control. The tunnel was dark and narrow. Mark carried Lysa through winding paths deep inside the earth. His breath was heavy, his arms tired, but he didn't stop. Behind them, the echoes of destruction faded slowly. The bunker was gone, burned to dust by alien weapons, but they had escaped, for now. Lysa rested her head on his shoulder. Her skin was hot, glowing in waves. The child inside her was growing fast, and the pressure was rising. Mark whispered, "Hold on. We're almost safe." But even as he said the words, he knew they weren't true. The Highborn would not give up. They had already crossed one line by sending warriors to Earth. Now they would cross more. After hours of walking, Mark found a hidden cave. He laid Lysa down gently and lit a small fire. The warmth returned to the space, but the fear never left. Lysa opened her eyes. Her voice was weak, but clear. "They will keep hunting." Mark nodded. "Then we keep running." She shook her head. Slowly, "No. There's more. The child. It's not just a life, it's a message." Mark looked at her, confused. "A message?" She placed his hand on her stomach. "You gave it your thoughts, your fears, your hope. I gave it my knowledge, but something else is there." Mark felt it too, a soft pulse under her skin, a rhythm. Like a heartbeat inside a dream. "It wasn't just life, it was power," Lysa whispered. "They are afraid because this child can't be programmed. No commands. No limits." Mark stood and looked toward the cave entrance. "Then they'll stop at nothing to erase it." As if answering his thought, a soft sound echoed in the cave. A whisper, not from a voice, but from the walls. Mark reached for his weapon. Then, Lysa said, "Don't shoot." A figure stepped into the light. He wore dark armor, smooth and silent. His face was hidden behind a glass mask. But his voice was clear, cold, and without emotion. "You are holding illegal property," he said. "Release it and you will be allowed to live." Mark stepped in front of Lysa. "She's not property," he said. "She's a person." The figure tilted his head slightly. "She was," he replied, "until she broke genetic law." Lysa sat up slowly, her strength returning. "I didn't break it," she said. "I proved it was wrong." The soldier raised his arm, and a small device hovered above his hand. "Final warning," he said. "Surrender the experiment." Mark raised his rifle. "You'll have to go through me." The soldier paused for a moment, then lowered his weapon. "You will regret this," he said calmly, then disappeared back into the sin. Back. Dark. Mark didn't lower his gun. He waited, listening for footsteps, but none came. Lysa said he was only a scout. The next ones won't talk first. They knew time was short. The child inside her was almost ready to be born, but not here, not underground. Mark thought for a moment, then said, "There's an old research station in the mountains. It's abandoned, but it has tech we can use. Lysa nodded. We go now. They moved through the caves until they found an exit. The air outside was cold and sharp. Clouds covered the sky, and the ground was rocky. They traveled for hours through dust and wind. Every shadow looked like a hunter. Every sound made Mark turn his head. Finally, they reached the edge of the mountain. The station stood like a ghost. Broken but still standing, Mark opened the heavy door and helped Lysa inside. He found an old lab table and cleared it. Lysa lay down, her breathing uneven. Mark searched the drawers and found old tools, wires, and medical pods. He activated the system. The power flickered, then returned. Screens lit up, scanners hummed. It was enough, but outside, the Highborn were already coming, ships in the sky. Silent and silver. A storm was on the way, and the battle hadn't even begun. Lysa cried out in pain. Mark rushed to her side, holding her hand. It's time, she said. It's happening. The lights dimmed again, and a strange glow filled the room. Mark looked down and saw her stomach pulsing with soft blue light. The scanners blinked and changed, showing unknown energy patterns. Life was arriving, and the world would never be the same again. The research station shook as the sky darkened above the mountains. Thunder rolled, not from clouds, but from ships. Highborn ships, flying low and slow, searching inside the old lab. Mark stood over Lysa. Her body arched with pain. The scanners flashed red, but this wasn't a normal birth. The child wasn't just alive, it was awakening. Lysa gritted her teeth, glowing blue lines running across her arms. It's coming, she whispered. It's almost here. Mark held her hand. I've got you, he said. Just breathe. The lights flickered again, then everything went silent. In that moment, the child was born, not with a cry, but with a hum. A soft vibration that filled the air and echoed through the walls. Mark stared at the small body resting in Lysa's arms. The baby had pale skin like her, but human eyes, deep and dark. Its chest rose and fell slowly. But it wasn't crying. Instead, it looked at Mark, straight into his soul. Lysa whispered, "He knows you." Mark knelt beside her. The baby reached out. Touching his face with tiny fingers, a soft wave of warmth passed through him. He felt calm, like every memory he'd buried had just returned in a flash. His childhood, his pain, his loneliness, all of it, seen and understood in 1 second. Lysa smiled weakly. He's connected to your mind. He sees what you see, feels what you feel. Mark felt tears fill his eyes. He had never believed in miracles, but this child, this strange mix of alien and human, was more than a miracle. He was a key. Outside, the first strike hit the station. A blast shook the ground. Dust fell from the ceiling. Mark jumped to his feet. They've found us. He ran to the control panel, checking the external feeds. 3 highborn soldiers were approaching fast, weapons charged. More ships circled in the clouds. Lysa sat up. Slowly, holding the baby close, "We have to protect him," she said. "They're not here to take me. They're here for him." Mark looked at the scanner again. The baby's vitals pulsed with energy unknown to both alien and human tech. Then the screen showed something new. Signal emitting origin child. Mark leaned in. "What are you doing?" he asked, almost to himself. Lysa said, "He's calling to something." "Not them? Okay, something older." Another explosion hit, closer this time. Mark grabbed the old alien device he found years ago, the glowing chip he once thought was junk. He plugged it into the scanner. The room filled with symbols, language not of Earth. But somehow, Mark could read them. His mind shifted. Like something inside was unlocking. He saw diagrams, history, DNA sequences, and one word kept flashing. Catalyst. Mark whispered it, and the baby looked at him again. That same warmth washed over his body. He wasn't just the child's protector anymore. He was the trigger. Lysa gasped. Mark, he's using you. Mark didn't pull away. I don't care, he said. If it helps him live. A loud bang shook the doors. The highborn had reached the entrance. Mark looked around. No weapons will stop them, he said. But maybe. He can. The baby floated from Lysa's arms, gently, like lifted by invisible hands. His eyes glowed softly. A pulse of light spread from his body. It hit the walls, the machines, the floor. And then went outwards, outside. The highborn soldiers stopped moving. Their weapons dropped. Their armor cracked like eggshells. The ships in the sky began to spin off course. Systems fried, lights flickered out. One ship crashed into a mountain with a loud explosion. Another disappeared in a flash of white light. Mark stared at the child in awe. You're not a weapon, he whispered. You're a reset. Lysa stood up slowly, still weak, but smiling. He's rewriting the rules, she said. No control. No command. Just freedom. The child floated back into her arms and closed his eyes. Peace returned to the room. Silence. But this time, it was calm, not fear. Mark looked outside. Smoke rose from the fallen ships. No more soldiers. No more attacks. Lysa said softly, the highborn. They won't understand what happened here. Mark replied. Let them wonder. They tried to erase him. But he erased their power instead. He looked down at the baby and smiled. You're not just the future, he said. You're the beginning. Asterisk, the sky above Earth was quiet again. The smoke had faded, and the ships were gone. But Mark knew the silence wouldn't last. The highborn would return, stronger, angrier, desperate. Inside the broken mountain station, the baby slept in Lysa's arms. He looked peaceful now, but the air around him still pulsed with quiet energy. Mark sat nearby, watching both of them. His hands were cut, his shirt torn. But his eyes were full of fire. Lysa whispered, He is changing the world, even in sleep. Your world. My world. Both will feel him. Mark nodded slowly. We need to be ready. Lysa turned to him. We're not enough, she said. When the highborn return, they won't send soldiers. They'll send a fleet. Mark stood up and walked to the edge of the ruined doorway. The wind carried dust across the rocks. He stared at the horizon, thinking hard. Then he spoke. We don't have an army, but we do have a voice. He turned to the alien device still plugged into the old console, the same one that reacted. To the baby's birth, he activated it again. This time, the screen showed a map, not of Earth, but of systems beyond. Dots lit up planets, colonies, outposts. Some were human, others were not, but they all had one thing in common. They had once been under highborn control. Mark looked at Lysa. What if we send a message? Not just a warning, he said. A call. Lysa's eyes widened to rebels. Survivors. Anyone who remembers what freedom felt like? Mark smiled. We don't fight alone. The baby opened his eyes. Without a word, he placed his tiny hand on the console. The screen lit up. A signal pulsed across the stars. Not in words, but in feeling, memory, truth. It carried images of Mark holding Lysa, of the child's birth, of highborn destruction and fear, and finally, of a new life created without control. Across galaxies, the message reached far and wide. Old war veterans, forgotten AI, exiled scientists, scavenger tribes, they all felt it. And they listened, somewhere. In space, an old ship powered up for the first time in years. In another system, a rogue commander opened a vault of hidden weapons. On a distant moon, a rebel camp raised a flag once buried in dust. Earth was no longer alone, back in the mountains. Mark prepared for what was coming. He trained during the day and fixed equipment at night. Lysa helped build a signal field using broken alien tech. The baby grew stronger with each passing hour. He still looked small, but his mind was light years ahead. Sometimes he would speak not with words, but through feelings. Mark would suddenly remember things he'd forgotten. Nyxia would solve a problem before even seeing it. The child was more than intelligent. He was aware of time, space, life, and danger. Then the sky changed, 1 week after the signal went out. The stars shifted. Highborn warships appeared at the edge of Earth's orbit. Thousands of them, silent, perfect, deadly. Nyxia looked up and whispered, "They brought the whole fleet." Mark tightened the straps on his gear. He wasn't afraid anymore, not for himself. He had something to fight for now. He placed a hand on Lisa's shoulder, then looked at the baby. "We don't run this time." Lisa nodded. "We stand," as the highborn ships descended. Something unexpected happened. Rips in the sky. Wormholes. Light tunnels opened one by one. Ships came through, but not highborn. Rebel ships, pirate ships, old Earth war cruisers, even strange living vessels with glowing roots and crystal skin. They had heard the call, and they came. In the sky above Earth, a great battle began. Lasers cut through darkness, shields flared. Engines screamed, but on the ground, Mark stood calm. Beside him, Nyxia, holding the child. And behind them, humanity's last stand, mixed with the galaxies forgotten. Suddenly, the baby raised his hand. A wave of energy burst from the Earth. It rose like a dome, covering allies, disrupting enemy tech. Highborn ships fell like stars from the sky. Nyxia whispered, "He's choosing." Mark watched the sky burn and heal. The war had begun, but the ending had already changed. Not through destruction, but through connection. The highborn had spent centuries building control. But it only took one child, born of choice, mercy, and unity, to break their chains. As the last enemy ship fell, Mark dropped his weapon. The silence returned. This time, it meant victory. Nyxia stood beside him. The baby reached out, touching both of them. And in that moment, Mark understood. The future wasn't about one race winning. It was about all life, finally standing together. "We fight as one," he said. And for the first time in history, it was true.